Good evening and welcome to the October 2nd, 2013 meeting of the Lake Forest Building Review Board. I am Charlie King, Chairman of the Building Review Board, and this time I ask members of the board to introduce themselves, starting to my left.
My name is Fred Moyer.
Robert Rita.
Michael Black.
Monica Ruggles.
Edward Notes.
Special welcome to Mr. Moyer, his initial voyage here on the great ship. The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighbors, and interested citizens to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscape streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before this board are those in which the property owners are requested a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not be fully resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of the building permits issued by the city are done so without the need of any board review. Thus, the board typically deals with the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will provide an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that is thorough, fair, and without necessary delay. The next order of business is the approval of minutes from the August 8, 2013 meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Meetings from August 8th, meeting minutes from August 8th are so approved. Our next item on the agenda is consideration of a request for modifications to a previously approved replacement structure located at 1500 North Sheridan Road. The owners are Dan and Leanne Brune, and the representative is Scott Stratiff. At this time, I'd like to ask any board members if they need to recuse themselves on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself because of our company's involvement in the project.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Scott Stratiff, and I will be presenting this tonight on behalf of the owners, Dan and Leanne Brune. This Building Review Board petition was presented to you on June 9th, 2013, at which time the board voted in support of the demolition request and overall design of this new home. During the design development phase, some changes occurred in response to some of the board's comments and or concerns. And in addition to this, an overall reduction in scale took place so that it would fit within the building scale requirements for this zoning district. Although assigned a subcommittee at the June 9th meeting to address the board's comments, city staff felt that it would be appropriate to present these final modifications to you for your support and approval. We have worked closely with city staff and have made modifications to the design based on their recommendations as well. So as a result, the following modifications have occurred. What you're looking at here is the front elevation, and we're showing schematically, or what was proposed at the schematic level during the Building Review Board meeting at the June 9th hearing at the bottom, and then the final product at the top. And then there's also an outline of the final product superimposed over the schematic drawing. So to the front elevation, the following changes occurred. Number one, there was an overall reduction in scale so that it would fit within the building scale requirements. Number two, we changed all of the roof pitches to an 8/12 pitch for consistency of the architecture on all four elevations. Number three, we moved the house back approximately 4 additional feet based on the board's recommendation to minimize the appearance of mass at the front of the property. And number four, we changed the garage eave-line to a 1.5 story and an 8/12 pitch for consistency on all 4 elevations. This is the south elevation. Following changes occurred. Number one, overall reduction in scale so that it fits within the building scale requirements. Number two, changed all of the roof pitches to an 8/12 pitch for consistency. Number three, we minimized the garage extension from 33 feet to 31 feet 6 inches. And number four, we revised the dormers over the garage so that they are equally spaced and symmetrical. This is a slide of the site plan with the final landscape, showing the final landscape design and the original schematic layout of the house superimposed under the bottom, where it shows it right up against the front setback line. Between reducing the garage and between reducing the garage and moving the house back, it's a net pushback of right around 6 feet. Additionally, we provided additional evergreen screening along the south property line, provided an alley of deciduous trees along the drive approach, which will mitigate the appearance of bulk. This is the west elevation. Following changes occurred. We changed the master bedroom windows to meet the egress requirements and to match the other second floor windows. Number two, provided more detail to the clear story windows over the kitchen. This window was raised slightly due to the roof flashing requirements. The glass was removed from the top and will only be on the sides with a standing seam roof. The lighting will be a low-hanging fixture over the island, and the fixture will not be visible from this element. And number three, we changed the master bedroom eave line to 1.5 story and an 8/12 pitch to accommodate the railings of the porches and for consistency on all 4 elevations. Okay. I'm getting some reverb here, so I'm trying to. And then finally, the north elevation, overall reduction in the scale so that it fits within the building scale requirements. Number two, changed all of the roof pitches to an 8/12 pitch. Three, we minimized the garage extension from 33 feet to 31.5 feet. Four, we minimized the mudroom extension from 5.5 feet to 5 feet. Five, we changed the location of the sunroom so that it is centered on the living room. And number six, changed the master bedroom dormer from full-height windows that you see on the bottom to a transom dormer for privacy to the neighbors. So with that, we hope this board has a clear understanding of the modifications that have taken place and are in agreement with the design solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chairman King. As was noted by the petitioner, the board reviewed and approved the demolition and the replacement structure on this property several months ago. The petitioner has spent the last couple months refining the plans for the building permit application, and in that process, certain modifications were made to the design, some in response to the comments that were made at the previous board meeting as a condition of approval, and others, as was noted by the petitioner, to add some additional consistency and also to bring the project to within building scale requirements. Probably the most significant changes that are presented to you this evening are the massing of the garage wing that projects forward of the main mass and the overall roof pitches for the project. In general, the proposed project, as now envisioned, is consistent with the design standards for a replacement structure. There has been a reduction in the overall height of the structure. The structure has been set back approximately 4 feet to try to better align with the adjacent homes, as well as reduce the appearance of mass from the street. As was noted, the landscape plan has been enhanced, so there is additional screening between the property lines and also at the street property line. So this project is generally similar to what was proposed previously, but there were enough changes that we did need to bring this back to the board for additional consideration and action on the project. So we are recommending approval of this project, and we welcome your input and questions.
Thank you. Now, time for the board to ask questions of the petitioner or staff. Any questions? Bob, you want to start?
Yeah, that'd be great. Who am I asking the questions to? Oh. Mr. Stradiff, right?
Yes.
Hi. You know, it looks great. I got some observations that I
Okay.
want to talk to you about. If you look at the, what would be your north elevation, one of the things I noted was that on the front, on the east elevation, you have all the shutters against the windows, but then when you look at the north elevation, one item has a shutter all the way at the top of the, like the attic window. And I was just curious, that was one issue, curious as to why you did it like that. And the second one is, right below that is the door, and I can see how you centered it in the middle. But it seems kind of out of balance to me, where the door is on that mini porch you got up there. That was my two comments.
The window looks,
Yeah, the window's fine, I just was curious as to why, like, some have shutters, some don't have shutters.
that's a great question, and we've actually had conversations about that with the property owners, whether we should put windows on every single window around all 4 elevations, or, you know, because on the schematic drawings there on the bottom, we show shutters on the family room windows and then not on the ones up top. You know, I would prefer to see shutters on all the windows, but I'm not sure if there's a.
The attic gable window on the north elevation is reflecting one shutter.
And that's it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the owner has a strong feeling either way, but, you know, I would probably prefer to keep it consistent around all 4 elevations.
We're indifferent to that, so that's obviously a consideration for your suggestion.
Yeah, and then if you take that to the final conclusion, you go to the south elevation, your original proposal with all the windows looked really nice, because you had the shutters on that first level on everything. And then the new one, some windows have shutters, some don't. And I'm just gonna assume,
Yeah, you make a good point.
for sake of today, that all the shutters are gonna be the same style, they're not gonna be different types of shutters.
Correct.
Okay. And then one of
And
the,
we wouldn't put a shutter on like a dormer,
Right.
but, you know, where they can fit, we would put shutters.
so you guys will be consistent about that?
Yes.
And then one last one, if you look at the south elevation, where the door is, it seems like there should be a window in there. And I'm not an architect, so you gotta take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. And then over to the right, where the garage is, it seems like there should be another window in the first level of the garage too. And those are my comments.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I've got some questions. From what I understand, the project's being brought back to us because from the initial sketches, you went back and then you found you were over bulk, so you came back and reduced the roof height and did some other changes. So the biggest thing I see is that you changed 2 wings, the garage wing and the master bedroom wing, from a 1-story piece to 1.5 stories. Can you tell me why you changed those to 1.5?
Well, the recommendation from the city staff was to try and create some consistency with the roof pitches around the house. In the original proposal, we had, I think, a 9 or a 10-12 pitch on the main part of the house, and then the 1-story masses were a 14-12 pitch. And so I think there was a problem with you know, I think they felt maybe uncomfortable with the 2 different roof pitches. You know, in the master bedroom, there was another issue that kind of came up during the design development, and that, you know, we kind of realized as we were designing these porches that some of these railings really didn't have anything to die into when they engaged the house, and they were kind of hanging out in the wind, so to speak. So by raising the eave line and doing an 8-12 pitch, it kind of helped resolve that situation.
Okay. I recall from when the petition first came in, some of our concern was the massing of the garage wing, and when you were driving north on Sheridan, you know, you would see the mass of the garage wing. And that was a concern of ours when it was just the one story in height with the dormers. And I appreciate that you've shortened the length, but now you've made it 1.5 stories. So to me, it seems even bulkier than when the initial proposal was presented to us. And you know, I understand you lowered the main roof, but that part of the roof is actually receding away from you anyway. So that doesn't, you know, that doesn't really make the mass of the house that much less. But you've really, you know, by making it 1.5 stories, you're creating a bigger wall. And so the reason was just the consistency of the roof pitches. What?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because it really works, you know, in my opinion, the design works either way. You know, if we did a one-story eave line in the garage with a 14-12 pitch, it really still works. You know, I think it picks up, if you look at the front elevation, it picks up, we have one-story roof lines on the right and in the center, and you know, I think it picks up that horizontal band as a one-story element. However, I think that keeping roof pitches consistent is also a nice thing. So I'm a little bit personally on the fence as to whether we do it as a one-story or a 1.5 story. I'd be interested in the board's comments or thoughts on that.
Yeah, the initial proposal, you know, for both the front elevation, the east, and then the north elevation, it was really a nice composition where the main body of the house was the full 2 stories, and you had the subordinate wings, the 1-story pieces with the dormers, and I thought that was really a very nice composition. So now I guess my question is just that whole, why the 1.5 story, and you're saying because of the roof pitch?
That's correct.
Okay.
Was the home pulled forward on the site any further from the last presentation?
Did the home move forward? No, it moved back about 6 feet.
I don't have anything to add other than my colleague, Mr. Rita, pointed out that that window on the south elevation, which is centered on the second floor in the bedroom, does it look, and Bob, maybe I didn't follow what your point was, but I see how you have it centered with the window above it. Does it look more balanced if that window were centered in over that balcony area?
Yes, perhaps. I think it might. But then it's off-centered with the window above it, so it's, unless we were to
And I don't have an
offset the-
opinion either way. It's really just to circle back on that point. And
Okay.
I don't have anything else.
Could you talk about the skylight a little bit more? Did you say that there's only going to be windows on 2 sides of it? Did I hear that right?
No, the windows will go all the way around
Okay.
that element, but originally we proposed it as glass on the roof part, more like almost like a conservatory window with glass on top of it. And through the design development, talking about, you know, leaves falling on it and windows getting dirty and just light illuminating from that feature, we decided to remove the glass on the top and just do a standing seam roof and just
Okay.
have clear story windows all the way around.
Okay, you mentioned the light fixture below that will be a hanging fixture, and you feel that will not be a lot of light pollution coming out of that?
Correct.
Okay. And then one of the issues, I went to the site again this week, and it is a low-lying site. Do you feel confident about the drainage plan that you've come up with, and won't have any problems, or?
I feel I have all the confidence in the world in Mr. Black, and he actually has regraded the property so that, right now there's sort of a bowl in the middle of that property, and now we've regraded it so that it's sort of right in the middle of the property to the south and the property to the north, and the drainage is seeming to work well with that situation.
Okay, great. And then final question, the The color schematics for the house, what color scheme are you going to use?
It's going to be a Chicago Common brick with a blend of a couple of Chicago Common reclaimed bricks, depending on what's available at the time, because that kind of changes constantly. But it's so it's Chicago Common, and then white, or some shade of white, like a creamy white trim, cedar shingle roof. We talked about kind of a grayish, a blue-gray for the shutters, and a bronze-colored aluminum for the standing seam and the gutters and downspouts.
Okay, nice. Okay, thank you.
Has a commitment been made by the owners to the landscape plan that we're doing?
Yes.
Any other questions, board members? Okay. Now's the time anyone from the public would wish to testify on this petition. Okay, seeing none. Any further input from the staff at all? Megan? Okay. All right. Now time to take it back to the board for any final questions to either staff or petitioner. Seeing none. Okay. All right. Board discussion and comment. Would anyone like to kick it off? Ross, how about you?
Well, I think that the overall massing, the character with the size of the property, setback and move. I want to point out that the setback, however, is much less, can't tell exactly, 15, 20 feet than the two adjacent homes. Although that is to the garage, the main massing of the home steps back from there, which helps mitigate that fact. So I think I'm okay with that. But overall, I think it's an acceptable overall design and an enhancement to the neighborhood.
The one thing I think Monica made a nice point about the massing of the garage itself. Any concern about going to the 1.5 stories?
Little bit, but I think it appears to be in keeping with the character of the home. Again, because of the roof consistency, I like that. The landscape plan is pretty rich, so that would help to diminish it perhaps a little bit. That's why I asked the question about the commitment to that. So I believe I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right. Ted, any thoughts?
Regarding the massing of the 1.5-story garage, I don't have an issue with that. As I understand, and correct me if I'm mistaken, that the garage is being set back roughly 4 feet from the existing foundation of the house, if that's correct. As Ross pointed out, the mass relative to the overall house didn't seem disproportionate, and I don't have any issues. Other than that, I think the design is very attractive and will be a nice addition to the neighborhood.
I personally believe that the 1-story wings, which was a nicer solution, it was much more elegant. It made those wings subordinate to the main building. And I feel that the length of the garage as you approach it, going north on Sheridan, is going to be big. It makes the garage a much more important feature than I think the initial proposal does. So, to be honest, I think the first proposal was a better solution than this one.
On the garage side, I think.
On the garage, and
Yeah.
also the master bedroom wing. I think although, it's a side, we want to have consistency throughout. And the initial proposal where it had the 1-story with the 2 dormers over, at the master bedroom suite was in keeping. It was a nice repetition of the same materials and the dormers and forms. And now there's that new kind of shed dormer with the transom windows. And I thought the initial proposal was more elegant.
Fred, any thoughts, comments?
Well, no, I'm in concurrence with the comments that have been made by the other members. One of them was referring to the window in the attic with what appeared to be one shutter, and it looked like the shutter's not big enough to cover the window either. But I think that was awkward, and I think that's been commented upon. And of course, I'm coming in midway or second half of the game here, but from what I understand, there have been reductions in scale and adjustments from what was previously apparently approved. So, and I think the adjustments are in the right direction, so I have no problem.
Bob, any thoughts?
I have to agree with my colleague, Mrs. Ruggles. The first drawing on that front elevation, the east elevation, I think looks great. Even if it's got a higher pitched roof on it, it just seems like the lines all line up perfectly. When they went to the bigger mass of that garage, it almost feels a little out of character to the front, because it's almost as if the roof line on the sunroom to the right, if you carry that all the way straight to the left, it kind of like dies at the garage. But on the first drawing, it goes all the way across, and it's got a really kind of clean, sharp, classic look to it. So I guess the question is, does it matter? I mean, can they go back to the smaller version, because it'll be less obtrusive from the street? Yeah, I think it looks 10 times better.
Thanks. I agree, Bob, Monica. I do like the smaller, the shorter garage. Whether or not I would uphold, withhold support of basement, I'm not sure. I guess maybe it warrants more discussion amongst the board. I do like, the overall design is quite nice, great use of materials. It's an interesting piece of architecture. I think it'll fit nicely in that neighborhood in general. I do think the shutters are a bit haphazard once you get away from that front facade, and I'd like to see a little more continuity on the shutter side of things. But really, I think that garage is I would prefer to see it shorter. Again, I probably could approve it, but sounds like consensus. Ross and Ted did not have a huge problem with it. Fred, it sounds like it was a garage concern to you at all, or?
I haven't fully tracked that issue. I didn't mean to suggest that. In fact, I'm really not totally in fully understanding what that change was. I didn't really see it before, and the drawing's not entirely clear to me. Maybe.
Yeah, Mr.
as
Straff,
to
can you
what
bring
was
that up
before
again?
Now.
Yeah, so if you look at the drawing on the bottom there, it shows the one-story eave line of the garage. And the one on the top, which is what we're proposing, is raised to 1.5 stories.
Well, I think the sharper angle, the more acute angle is more attractive, but I think part of your motivation in changing was to make it consistent with other slopes.
Correct.
So, it was kind of a situation where a model would have been helpful to see it three-dimensionally rather than in different planar views. But I would agree that there's a little more drama, more character, more style in the sharper angled, which I guess is the initial form, right? I think that is more
That is correct.
attractive.
Chuck, if I
Go ahead,
could
Ted. Go
comment,
ahead,
on
please.
the north elevation, to my colleague's points about the clean roof line of the one-story alternative, it looks like you've done some brick pattern to try and continue that one-story element around the garage. Is it possible to do something similar that extends to the east, where you're using the clapboard siding to help break that dividing line between the 1-story and the 1.5-story alternatives?
It is possible.
It's something that would look
Careful not to.
attractive, I should say.
Something attractive, yeah. I would want to be careful with what that element is that we do, but it's certainly possible, yes.
The one reason why I'm sensitive, and Monica pointed out, is really this house is going to be viewed a lot from Sheridan Road when people come in north or south, and that's an element you'll be able to see at times coming back and forth, and so I think we need to be sensitive to that area. It's in a lot of massing in any event.
Mr. Strata, would it be, is it problematic to go back to the smaller massing of the garage? Keep
No.
keep the steep roof?
No, it's been submitted for a building permit with
steeper.
drawings with the steeper pitch.
This was in response?
This was in response to the building permit submittal. So we revised it to, and I think it's certainly legitimate to consider trying to keep all the roof pitches consistent. But it does raise other issues, to raise the eave line, and it does increase mass, and I think Megan even, mentioned that. So in my opinion, I think I agree with Monica that I liked the, the one-story eave line, and it kind of tied everything together across the elevation. I'm not sure if the property owner has a preference.
We're different. If it's gonna get approved with the line the way it is, then we will leave the line with the way it first was. And that's what we initially
Okay.
submitted, so we're
Okay.
comfortable with that.
We appreciate that, thank you. Well, based upon that, then, do we have some consensus?
To go back to the
Go
original.
back to the original one-story eave line, and
I concur.
can we concur on that?
And
Okay.
keep
Would
the
that be
main
b-
body of the house at a different pitch?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fine.
And I don't have an issue with that.
But for the master bedroom though, that would
Please step forward and use the microphone if you're going to speak.
We can stay consistent with the master bedroom having the 812 pitch though. It's just for the roof for the garage, correct? That you want the
I believe
massing?
that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're great with that.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have a motion then?
Sure. I move to approve the petition for 1500 North Sheridan Road with the revised elevations, the site plan, and the landscape plan as more fully detailed in the staff report and the conditions of the staff report for today, with the caveat that they're gonna go back to the original garage, single-story line with the steeper roof.
Can I ask a question, Chuck, for clarity?
Sure.
Not having been a part of the petition when it first came in front of us, was that original garage elevation with the same setback from the street as this is? Just to be clear on what.
The garage has been moved back, is my understanding, which addressed one of our
since.
concerns.
So if
Yes.
we're going back, I want to be clear that we're going back only in terms of that roof line, but
not the location.
but not the location.
Location remains as we see it.
As received, yes. Thank you for the clarification, yes. Do we have a second?
So second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is a consideration of a request for approval of a demolition of the residence located at 1313 East Wesley Road and approval of a replacement residence site plan and landscaping. The owner is Chicago Land and Trust, and the representative is Diana Malakar, architect. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. I'm Diana Malakar, and I also have with me tonight Nancy Hannock of NLH Landscape Architects and Susan Benjamin of Benjamin Historic Certifications. Before I present the new design and supporting documentation, I would like to give you some background information regarding this petition because it informs our proposed design. This is an image of the existing home. Our clients acquired this home from a bank foreclosure in 2012. The house had been on the market for several years without a successful purchaser, as it proved to be undesirable to live in. Eventually, the home was abandoned and it was stripped of all valuable features and fixtures by the previous owner. Presently, this unoccupied home is a shell of its former self. This image shows the current condition of the building interior. It is important to note that this building in its present state has no functioning mechanical, electrical, nor plumbing systems, as even the copper pipes were stolen from the home when it was vandalized. The entire exterior wall system of this home is comprised of steel and glass. The glass lacks any energy efficiency and provides no thermal comfort, nor modesty for building occupants. In addition, the windows are not operable, so they do not provide ventilation, nor do they meet life safety requirements for building egress. Many of the windows have broken air seals or they simply are broken. The leaky flat roof is uninsulated and requires total replacement to fix its multiple problems. Prior to our client's purchase of the home, the building had been filled with 4 feet of standing water in the basement that was eventually pumped out by the bank. However, it was too late to stop the invasion of toxic mold growth throughout the house. This image shows the water line that remains on the basement walls. Despite the deplorable condition of this building, our client saw an opportunity to revive and transform its remains into a viable and vibrant home that could contribute to the character of the Bluffs Edge neighborhood. Our clients are longtime residents of Lake Forest with strong ties to our community. They fell in love with this property and its potential for renewal. Thus, when our clients acquired the home and property, they began their journey to stabilize and revive the building. First, they took steps to safeguard the building structure from water penetration by temporarily patching the flat roof leaks. Second, they professionally remediated the toxic mold that had pervaded the entire building's interior. Lastly, our clients set up temporary heating and ventilation to discourage further mold growth and interior building deterioration. Why have our clients gone to considerable lengths to save the building structure that remains? Our clients feel strongly that the most sustainable and ecologically sound strategy for building a new home is to reuse as many existing building materials in place. The new home design will retain the majority of the existing building structure. This is an image of the proposed building cross-section. The existing building structure is indicated in dark red, and the new building structure is indicated in blue. After an initial review of the existing building structure and a thumbs up by our structural engineer, the opportunity to reuse and recycle rather than trash the building became a viable option. Our clients would like to incorporate the existing concrete foundation and floor slabs and structural building steel into their new home design. The substandard glass window panels and leaky flat roofing will be removed. The existing building's structural roof deck will form the new second floor, and a new sloped roof will shelter the proposed second floor bedrooms to create a 1.5-story home. Now I will concentrate on the proposed home design. Our clients want to transform their existing commercial office-style structure into a more traditionally styled residence that fits better within the broader historical context of East Lake Forest. Our intention is to create a home that is tasteful, restrained, and transformational in architecture, taking cues from the French Revival style. This image shows some local works of architect Harry T. Lindeberg's unique American interpretation of that style. We are inspired by Lindeberg's buildings that feature an evocative austerity and abstract use of form and proportion, and compelling, low-springing roofscapes. These are features that fit well within our client's existing building footprint and building structure. Here are some more local examples of the French Revival style by other architects. We believe that this architectural style is also appropriate for our client's property setting, as many such significant examples exist in our community, especially on the east side of town in similar woodland landscapes. These images compare the existing and proposed building models of the home. They're also on the rail up there. On the top, you can see the existing, sprawling, machine aesthetic looking home with its slavishly repetitive steel and glass panels. There is no human scale, and the elevations are lacking visual interest. On the bottom is the proposed home design. The building detailing and proportions are appropriate to the French Revival style. These images show the proposed elevations of the home. As you can see, there is a consistency of architectural design on all elevations of the home. Architectural features include asymmetrical building massing with balanced and orderly fenestration, natural stone walls with arch-top French door openings, an elegantly tapered slate roof, and well-proportioned pitched roof dormers with smaller scale window panes. These images are representative examples of the proposed natural building materials that are appropriate for the French Revival style home. Walls will be random coursed ashlar lath and stone, with stone jack arches above the arched openings like the upper left-hand image. The front entry portico is subtle and will feature a cut flush limestone surround similar to the lower right image. Roofing material is black Vermont slate, including the side walls of the dormers. Doors will be natural wood. Windows will be insulated clad wood and simulated divided lights inside and out. Now I will review the home's siding and landscaping. This diagram indicates the existing and proposed home's footprints. The existing building footprint is indicated by the purple lines, and the existing structure to remain in green. The garage, turret, and bay window additions are shown in blue. We are pleased that the proposed building footprint is more compact than the original home. Due to the building orientation, the proposed home will appear smaller for the neighbors to the west and east, and further away from the street for the neighbors to the north. With our new home design, we have the opportunity to change the garage orientation to face away from Wesley Road and Bluffs Edge Drive. The left-hand image shows the existing garage, where the doors face the entry driveway and forecourt, competing for attention with the home's front door. The right-hand image shows the proposed garaging, which faces away from the proposed home's front entry. The garage doors are shielded by dense plantings from the property's driveway entry and public roadway line of sight. From the onset of this project, it has been our client's directive to maintain as much of the natural environment as possible. Immediately surrounding the original home, the previous homeowner imposed a Japanese-style garden and an irregular-shaped swimming pool and terraces surrounded by landscape berms that impede the natural site drainage. It is our intent to remove these artificial berms and return the site's grading to its original condition. This is the proposed site plan, landscape plan that is. This property has suffered over the years from benign neglect. On site, there are 140 trees over 6 inches in diameter. Unfortunately, there are a fair number of trees that are dead, diseased, or hazardous. We have worked diligently with Urban Forest Management and the city arborist to develop a plan to remove these trees and nurture the site back to health. Only 4 larger trees will be removed for the proposed site plan. Our client intends to plant close to 60 new deciduous and evergreen trees to greatly increase the diversity of the native tree species. A dense screen of evergreen and deciduous understory trees and shrubs will be planted along the property perimeter and at garaging to increase privacy for neighbors. This is an image of our proposed site plan. Our client has 4 young children under the age of 5. They have requested a swimming pool with an automatic pool cover for safety and located within easy access to the mudroom in the kitchen. Our clients have also requested that we locate the pool outside of the line of sight of the formal living spaces to mitigate the view of that pool cover for 8 months of the year. We work closely with city staff to locate all site features and to save as many trees as possible to achieve our clients' programmatic requirements. Proposed walkways and terraces will complement the home and natural landscape, utilizing granite gravel chips and bluestone and quartz pavers. In conclusion, the transformation of 1313 East Wesley Road will dramatically enhance the existing property, and the new design will be more consistent with the neighborhood context. Our clients are willing to take on this challenge to revitalize this neglected property to make it once again desirable to live in for many years to come. Thank you for your consideration, and we'll be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Megan?
Thank you, Chairman King. This item was actually scheduled to go before the board several months ago, but was postponed at the request of the petitioner to really work through some issues that were raised at the staff level with respect to the site work and tree removal that was proposed. Since during that time, the petitioner has met with the city arborist, as was noted, several times, and I think a good compromise has been achieved with respect to the site, but I'll go into that later on in my comments. When staff was first approached with the concept of really reskinning this modern building with a more traditional design, we really questioned that approach and whether or not it was appropriate to demolish the existing modern architecture, and B, whether or not reuse of the existing footprint was really going to work when it came to the architectural style. So we did push the petitioner to look at the building from a preservationist standpoint, to research the architecture and really support the design decisions that are being presented to the board this evening. And I think based on the information presented in the packet this evening, they've done a sufficient job to support the demolition as well as the design of the replacement structure. I do know that their preservation consultant is present this evening, so if the board does have questions with respect to the existing architecture, I'm sure the petitioner would be happy to respond to those. With respect to the site, there are several large trees on this property. Some of them are high quality specimens, very large heritage trees, and a good chunk of the trees on this property are diseased or hazardous. So I'm sure the board members have visited the site and noted the ribbons that were on the trees. Staff has worked with the petitioner to identify key areas of the site for landscape screening from neighbors, in particular along the property lines, and screening of the garage doors to the front. We've discussed maintaining the natural woodland character from the street while still allowing some more formal landscaping to occur closer to the house. And then mitigating the loss of some of the significantly beautiful trees on the property with the replacement plantings that are proposed. So hopefully with the replacement plantings proposed, the loss of those large trees are mitigated and the site can continue to be a woodland property for the long term. We did receive correspondence from the neighbor, I believe across the street, with some concerns about screening of the garage doors. I know the landscaper is also present this evening to respond to some of those questions, but it does appear that adequate landscaping is proposed in that area to screen off the garage doors from the street. We've also in the past, when this petition was previously scheduled, we've heard from other adjacent neighbors with overall support for the project and request that landscaping be installed along the property lines. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we are recommending approval of both the demolition of the existing structure and the replacement structure that's proposed.
Thank you. Our time to question the petitioner or staff.
Hi, Diana. What are the proposed windows?
The proposed windows? Well, what we're showing is a Marvin product, so the clad wood inside and out, simulated divided light.
SDLs? And the masonry, you mentioned the limestone.
Land and stone.
Is the foundation that's being salvaged, the structure that's being reused, is it your opinion that in so doing, it then minimizes as much of the stress that might have otherwise been served on the wooded landscape? The excavation and the foundation work?
Certainly. I mean, there were a lot of considerations to reusing the building structure, and quite frankly, a lot of it had to do with the site as well. So the driveway is located essentially in the same location as the original driveway, with some tweaking. And again, we were trying to use the same foundation. so, and the building structure.
I just want to point out, a mature site like this, if this building were entirely demolished and a new structure built, it certainly would not be encompassing the same footprint as this, and it would have put significant stress on the canopy. So that's very appealing. That's all I have for now. Thanks. Thank you.
I have only two questions. The first would be to staff. With the location of the pool where it is now, is that encroaching on the setback line on the east side of the property?
It's my understanding that it complies with code requirements for setback from the property line.
Okay. My question for Diane, I'm having trouble visualizing the dormers that you're showing on the east elevation that have the squared off top of the roof line. Do you have anything that depicts exactly how that integrates with the roof?
When
So
you
on
say
that
how does
south
it integrate?
elevation, your dormers have that squared off top above the windows. Do you have anything that help? I'm having difficulty visualizing what that looks like in terms of how it meets up with the roof line. Do you have anything that shows?
The model does not reflect
it's
that.
just, front.
It doesn't, but, you can see it on the west elevation up the top there, on the right-hand side. It's going into the roof in the same way as any of the other dormers.
So is it a
Make sure-
flat,
It would have a slight pitch on it,
Your roof plan actually shows it.
yeah,
The roof plan actually shows the top-down detail.
right.
See that?
So it's mostly flat.
You're looking at enough.
I mean, it's not a 12-on-12 pitch, obviously. I'm not sure exactly.
You have a copy of the roof plan with you?
I don't think we do, do we? No, we don't, I'm sorry.
Here, pass that down.
it wasn't in our packet.
It's in the packet.
It was in the packet. So what we were trying to avoid was if you had a 12-on-12 roof pitch and it went up, then you'd have massive dormers. We were trying to keep the mass of those low, and work more with that, more of the overall roof form of that, the tall that's going from the front to the back of the house.
So I am clear, the top of that dormer is not flat.
It has a slope, but it's not flat, correct?
Because I am looking at the roof plan and it's difficult to see. Here it shows it's angled,
It's
much
gonna,
more than it being flat.
it's gonna have an angle, but there's gonna be two roof pitches on there. Just like you do on, yeah, I don't know that we have it. Yeah, I'm sorry that we don't have that picture for you.
It looks mostly flat.
Yeah, it's got a
We don't need to dwell on the point, I
very
just,
low slope.
What is the product on that low slope?
Well, we haven't selected that yet, but it's probably gonna be some sort of copper, I'm guessing. Yeah. Just because the rest of the roof is gonna be slate, that slate shingle,
What type of slate?
Vermont black.
It seems like the other examples of French Revival architecture, maybe the dormers aren't protruding quite as much, that kind of mass out extending from the roof. Would you agree with that, or?
Let's go to the materials. If we go back to our elevation, yeah, what we've got on the sides, it's coming out, not that far. I mean, it's not a huge dormer. The ones that are on the other ones, I'm trying to see, that we had that were examples. compared to the, I mean, if you see it on the model, you can see that they're not sticking out. These, of course, are up in an attic condition. This has a closer condition to what we're looking at here in the bottom right-hand corner, because it's, it's closer to the outside wall. So,
And then the elevations, you got this kind of single dormer on the north elevation, then you get this south, and you've got kind of a double wide, if not triple. I mean, is that typical?
correct.
that
We
you
have
viewed?
we have wider dormers there because, again, we're working with the existing building structure that's there. So we've got a floor plate height that's pretty high from, this is the existing floor plan here, floor level. And then we go up to the second floor and we're right in this zone. And then we've got the roof pitch that's going up. So, what we're working with here is, rooms that are trying to fit with underneath that roof pitch. And so, we're trying to get the light and ventilation required for these rooms. The floor plate's a little wider than we would, if we had been designing it from scratch, we probably would have made the floor plate a little narrower, if that makes sense. If we go to the floor, any of these, this dimension across here in each one of these directions, we are working with that, and it's a little wider. It's a little wider than we would have made that if we had started from scratch.
Okay.
So we're working with that in the existing structure.
Diana, I have some questions about the existing home itself. To be honest, I find it just to be an outstanding example of a, international style modern house, based off of, some of Mies van der Rohe's architecture. Did you and the client consider just restoring the existing home? I mean, I know from reading all the information, the interior has all been gutted, so you're basically left with the exterior, which is, as I said, really, I mean, you can't like dictate what style people like, but it is really a beautiful building.
Yeah. Well, I'll admit that when I first came up to the house, I went, oh, whoa, this is an example of a good Miesian type architecture as well. But when we started getting into the reality of it, the fact that that the house, for starters, the steel structure, we're in the situation where to replace any of that glass, we're dealing with a steel structure that only allows a certain thickness of glass. It's my understanding from the owner that the previous homeowner's bills were about $2,500 a month to heat it because there's no exterior wall, it's all glass. Then you've got the issue that none of the windows are operable and you can't actually, get to the outside. There's no egress, so you've got that going on, that there's, so those things don't meet code. And then the integrity of the structure. There were so many things that were changed that pretty soon we were looking at, it wasn't really a restoration in any way. It was a reconstruction that we were, replacing the entire exterior wall, replacing the entire exterior roof, rebuilding something that didn't actually fit in any kind of model for something that somebody would want to live in for a modern family, because you're basically living in a fishbowl, no privacy. So it was really apparent from the get-go that the homeowners had no interest in restoring it. It was just too far gone.
So the property was purchased more for the land value, not for the existing home?
Well, I don't know about value, but certainly for the property, they love the property. They love the natural setting. Yeah.
So, Megan, is this, I know that there's all kinds of, we've got Susan Benjamin's, nice report on the home. It's not on any kind of Lake Forest, it's not in the historic district or anything like that, or
The home is not
special.
within the historic district, and it's not locally landmarked within the community.
Could you comment on the architect Krasinski? Well-known,
Never heard of him before Susan Benjamin's report. He worked in a Chicago office that did the modern style type architecture, but eventually he became a property developer. That's all there's more information in the report, but he's not anybody, like Frank Lloyd Wright or something, or, so.
okay, thank you. Any questions? Gentlemen,
I have
questions?
just a question. It's not probably the most important question, but I'm just curious. Regarding the structure, the second floor will be resting on what was the roof structure. Obviously, you had some analysis done of that, but I'm just curious of that because roof structures are designed for a lesser live load than our floor loads. So
Correct.
how did that analysis run?
Yeah. We looked at it with our structural engineer, and there's a way that we can work with the roof deck and the structure and basically reinforce to create it more like a diaphragm, so it takes care of that extra load. So we're not doing as much spanning as we are doing, creating a diaphragm out of it. So it didn't seem like it was going to be a problem. So yeah. We were grateful for that. We thought maybe we were going to have to do a lot of reinforcing, but no.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Megan, I noticed that the garage is a couple 100 feet over the allowable bulk. Is it typical to then allocate that overage to the overall square footage, which appears what's been done here, and then it simply falls under the total bulk ordinance?
That's correct. There is an allowance provided in the building scale ordinance for a garage. If the garage is larger than that, it needs to be compensated in the square footage of the building.
Bob, Mike, any questions?
I'd have a question of Susan Benjamin. If she's here, if I could ask a couple questions. Good evening.
Good evening.
In your report, in the conclusion, it says it's with regret that you conclude that there's so little of the house that remains that it needs to be torn down. When you walk around the exterior of the structure, it seems like it's pretty much intact except for the breezeway and the chimney, and then also maybe some of the hardscape around it, which is not really the structure. But could you speak to that a little bit more?
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's kind of a sad tale, and I understand where you're coming from, Monica, because I'm a lover of modern architecture. But the house, well, a couple of things. The house has been, as you can see on the interior, I mean, it's barely a shell, and the shell that's there isn't functional. And in order to, I mean, it has the shape and the rhythms and that sort of thing, but the materials aren't adequate. You'd have to really reconstruct it, and then you're not doing preservation. I mean, when we apply the guidelines, the Secretary of the Interior standards to historic buildings, I mean, we're thinking about not just preserving features. Unfortunately, so many of the features are gone. The defining features are gone. But we're talking about preserving materials, because that's kind of what modern architecture is all about, is materials and scale and so forth. And then there's, so work on it would, in essence, be what Diana said, a reconstruction. It's not a matter of restoration. The other piece of it is that, this is a type of building that is commonly found in large buildings, in institutional buildings, IIT, Crown Hall, or the Civic Center, or the Daly Center, that Corten Steel building. Jacques Brownson was the in 1952, used it for his own house, but, you know, he was the architect of the Daley Center. You know, the houses that used it, there were very few in the Chicago area. The Farnsworth House, and if you've read any of the complaints of Dr. Farnsworth, you know, well, that's a whole story of itself. But, you know, it didn't kind of function to her liking. And it's more complex than that, but that's a piece of it. The Ben Rose Auto Museum, which is this stunning building by David Haid, well, it was an auto museum. I mean, Ben and Fran Rose collected modern cars, you know, not Model Ts, but, you know, Bugattis, you know, that kind of car. And he was a world-class fabric designer, a modernist. So, you know, it functioned in that purpose. It functioned for, it barely functioned for the Farnsworth House. You just don't find, you know, houses like that because they're not comfortable to live in. They're challenging. There's no, I mean, it would make me crazy because you can't open a window. I mean, the only ventilation comes through doors, and they're kind of scattered around. So there are a lot of issues with that house. Probably the primary problem is that you can't, you know, reconstructing it is not restoring it, and you end up with something else. And I'm kind of thinking, and I was going to suggest to Megan that my report end up at the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Historical Society because it's a story, and it deserves to be documented. But the house, unfortunately, it isn't what it was. There's that integrity problem. Remediating it would be a reconstruction, and then you would have something that is problematical in terms of livability. So that's where, you know, that's the, and I'm Clarence Krasinski, we interviewed him, you know, so we really did what we could do to learn as much as we could about it. And it's pretty much as Diana said, you know, in terms of how his career went, and maybe it's time for a little different story to be told.
So then the defining elements that are no longer there, is that primarily the interior that you're speaking to?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, but how long did the Walgreens live in the house?
Oh, gosh. I'd have to look back in here. I don't remember.
But I mean, it was a livable house for...
Well, that's a story, too. And I... Yes.
Actually, the exterior, the whole area around the house was changed as well. Okay, so it used to be sort of like on this sort of platform, and then they came in and you can address that, but all the materials and the landscape, you know.
The hardscape has been considerably altered.
Right.
So that, you know, it doesn't have that sort of platform that set it off. And some of the walls are gone. I mean, it just doesn't have the integrity. Thank you for reminding me, Diana, because that's true. So the hardscape features, which are as much defining of that house as modern, have been replaced or are missing.
I guess that's kind of where I struggle with it, because when you read through the Peace Borst structural report, where it says that the structural components are in good condition, the steel roof beams are in good condition, the first floor is in good condition, the foundation's in good condition. You know, and like normally when we get demos, it's because of there's those structural problems with it.
Well, this is sort of an integrity issue that more than a structural problem when we're talking about the hardscape having been altered. And I'm glad Diana reminded me, because the interior is so obvious, but the exterior is a little more subtle, and that hardscape has been altered a lot, and that diminishes the integrity of the house.
I noticed, you know, they changed the driveway to a different material. They changed some of
the walkway around the house.
better to that.
The wall is gone and back.
But I think that's a separate issue. I think that's more of a hardscape issue versus a building preservation issue.
Well, I think of modern architecture as an organism, so it's pretty hard to separate out the elements because they're all integral to what makes it important. And you start chipping away at stuff, so that chips away at its significance, and it's, you know, it's not a good thing. It's, you know, it's a sort of sad tale, but that's kind of what it's about. Whether it's a Frank Lloyd Wright house, and those are older, I understand, or a modern house of a whole variety, again, the Edward Dart house here, which is really stunning. I mean, you know, you start chipping away at the exterior hardscape, the interior character-defining elements, and you're chipping away at the integrity and the significance of the house.
I'll pick up on that. Are we in the question period rather
Yes,
than
please
comment?
go ahead,
I'm
Fred.
not sure I'm
Go
in
ahead.
the question arena. I think I have comment.
We're still in the question period
I'll
before we
hold it-
go
I'll
to
hold it till
discussion,
later.
so, yeah. A little chance to discuss in a bit. Any other questions?
You know, I do, I have one.
Go ahead, Bob.
There's, this is not necessarily for you, but for Ms. Meligar. The one neighbor, James Kellogg from across the street, was really concerned about looking at the garage doors. And I noticed on the landscape plan, it looks like you got a lot of plantings right to screen that. Can you just point that out for us?
Sure, yeah. And our
Are they-
landscape architect is here as well tonight. Can you go, Jim, in the-
My colleagues can read these things a lot
The
better than I
diagram.
can, so I need a little help.
Right here. Well, for starters, the garage is gonna be really nice looking, with beautiful doors, but this is all new landscaping in here, and of course, that's quite far from the street, you know, over from, I can't remember the exact distance, but let's say if this is 30 feet, you know, we're 150 feet away from the street, and you've got all these other trees in here, but this planting has been especially densely created. We also, over here, Nancy, you could address this more, but we provided quite a bit of screening over here. There's a neighbor that has, our client has talked with them, and they both agree through mutual agreement that they would like to maintain that screening but provide even more just for privacy. And then they have screening along here, arborvitae, and then they've planted throughout understory trees and things too.
How tall will that new plantings by the garage get?
This is Jancy, by the way.
What's proposed here are 7 evergreen spruce trees, which will be planted at the 10 to 12 foot range initially, and they mature in the 40 to 50 foot range. And there's understory shrubbery and understory trees that will be mingled amongst those as well. So it will be a rather dense planting.
Great.
Then behind that is the existing wooded area. We have quite a few oaks that we're going to be able to keep in this area that are healthy and in good condition, that won't be disturbed at all. This is a rather large oak over here and some smaller ones.
There was a, I know in the staff report, they were concerned about a 23-inch oak in the front that
You're
may or may
referring-
not survive it.
Referring to this tree right here. Right. So that tree has survived, I would think that it must be, the landscape was previously altered, I would probably say in the 70s or 80s, with this Japanese-style landscape with, where they excavated a pond. They took the excavation, the pond is on this side. They took the excavation and flipped it to this side and built a berm, and all that soil was built up and around the feet of the tree, and the tree is still alive. So that's not typical, but swamp white oaks tend to be more resistant to construction. What we're hoping to do is take this pond away and restore the existing grade to this area by scraping away the additional soil that's been added. This has been quite a bit built up, as well as this. There's an unusual berm over here. We will also take that away. So we're actually going to return the grade to the existing condition, give the tree a chance to breathe again, and we're hoping that that will mean that it lasts, but the arborist has asked us to provide replacement inches for that tree regardless. And we agreed to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board at this point? Okay. At this point, there's a chance for the public, anyone from the public to step forward. Any comments or questions? Please come up, sir, and to the microphone.
Ladies and gentlemen and members of the board, I live next door to this property since 1981. And I was lucky to be at the time with Mr. Walgreen's neighbor, and during the time, I can't give you the history of the upkeep of this particular property, but I have been inside the house and outside the house and passed by every day for 30-some years. And this house has never had any particular program to upkeep the trees or the landscaping or just about anything else. The numbers of the people who have lived there have been really not interested in doing anything particular to upkeep the house and its style. But during the time that Mr. Walgreen never obviously complained about anything, but after that, any of those people who have been there and have been inside their house complained about the lack of the heat and intensity of the light and not being practical house to live in. However, being neighbor of that, I was hoped that always somebody will come in and take this house and make it into a decent Lake Forest house planned as this one is. And I just was going to tell you a lot about the support that I and my family have to this particular property being renovated, being done properly, and will look like a Lake Forest house. But there has been enough said, and I think that you all know the history. So I'd like you to know that me and my family hugely are pleasantly surprised and happy that someone has bought the house and a property that will turn into a Lake Forest house, and we're very pleased with the design. I have looked at the design. I have had a couple or three occasions to talk to the new owner, and certainly I've been very impressed by his attention to upkeep and improve the property and make it what it should be. I just want you to know that this is the only house since I have been there that never had a grass or landscaping, and this street side of the property has been absolutely eyesore in there. So I can't tell you how pleased we are, and I like to support and express my desire for you to know that we're really just absolutely lucky to be next door to this particular property.
Thank you, sir. For the record, could we get your name and your address, please?
I'm Dr. Nader Bozorgi, Naderbozorgi. I live in 1351 East Wesley Road, which we are absolutely next door to each other.
Okay, great.
So, by the way, your question, I think Mr. Walgreen left the property about 1984, 80, plus minus. That's my recollection.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the public care to testify? Okay. Seeing none, staff, any response to the testimony or any other additional input? Okay. Petitioner, any rebuttal?
I just wanted to reiterate that this house is very unlivable. It has not been desirable, and that's why it's been abandoned and had a series of homeowners. It's not a museum, it's a house, and even the original homeowner who built it moved out. So my concern would be that if the house remained in place, that our homeowner would not be interested in owning that house and put it up on the market. And then again, it's going to be sitting there left vacant for our community to wrestle with. And then finally, I guess it's sort of a rhetorical thing, but by definition, this house, as soon as we replace the roof, replace the entire exterior wall, replace all the mechanicals, just one of those building systems would push it into it technically being a demolition. So By definition, it's already a demolition. We're just requesting that, again, instead that we reuse the steel into our new building structure. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts. Any final questions from the board to staff or petitioner? Okay. So let's open up to discussion. Any comments? Go ahead, Ross.
We always struggle, obviously, with the demolition of a unique home in the community, and losing the character. That said, I concur with the neighbor and with Ms. Malakar that in my opinion, what we have here is a home that is not historic in architecture. It's not listed, it's not registered, it's in deplorable condition and would require a complete reconstruction to bring it up to livable standards. My guess, it would sit vacant for the foreseeable future and not create a livable asset for the community. And in my opinion, what is an asset, that said, is the property, which is beautiful. And if this plan is executed accordingly, the property itself will be enhanced. The infrastructure of the original home will be utilized and reimagined. And at the end of the day, what's really the historic aspect of this home was a prior inhabitant, was the original owner, who's long since been gone out of this home. And so, you know, I think, in my opinion, we preserve that asset and that legacy by maximizing the site itself and creating an architectural element that is more in keeping, therefore, with the community. Those are my thoughts.
I couldn't possibly add anything to what Ross just said. I completely agree with every element. I think Diana and the homeowner have come up with a fantastic plan to very creatively reuse the asset to the degree they can. I think the homeowners will benefit immensely from the care and attention that's being put into the house now and add value to the neighborhood. I wholeheartedly support the plan. My only reservation is coming back to those second floor dormers. If any, again, I'm having difficulty getting my head around that flat roof line over those dormers, so I just ask if staff could spend some attention to if there's some alternatives that might be visually better. But I'll defer to my colleagues on their thoughts.
Well, I think that the original home, being a Walgreen home, is part of the equation of what was there. But I do think the existing home is a fantastic piece of modern architecture. So just because Charles Walgreen lived there, it doesn't, really sway me, to want to keep it one way or the other. I just think it's a great looking modern home. And it's disappointing that it wasn't taken care of and it's left in the shape that it is. But I do think most of the exterior is in good condition. When I walk the site, just the views from the inside into the, what you could see, that if you were in the inside of that house and you could look outside to the lot, it's fantastic. And just like right around the corner on Circle is another modern house. There's a Dart house over there. So this type of architecture can be found in Lake Forest. It is a Lake Forest house. I mean, this house was built in the 60s. There's other houses in the 50s. There's modern architecture in our community. And to see something like this, a nice example, lost, I just think is a shame. I understand the petitioner's reason for wanting to build on this lot. It's a beautiful area, and I think the proposed design is also a nice piece of architecture, but I'm torn as to allow, for myself to, to approve a demolition of something that I think is a really nice piece of architecture that's structurally stable.
And, any comments, guys?
Well, I kind of agree with Monica, and I struggle with the criteria for approval of the demolition when you take a look at criteria 1, 2, or 3, and so criteria 1, is the structure historically significant, architecturally significant, culturally significant? I mean, I guess you could, decide what you think on that one. And then even on like number 3, it says the structure in its present or restored condition is unsuitable for residential use and is rendered an immediate health or safety hazard. I think we'd be hard pressed to say if this house was restored that it would be that you wouldn't be able to live in it. The other thing is that when this house was built, most of those houses in that neighborhood weren't there. That Villa Turcom subdivision hadn't been platted in 1969, and so most of those houses were built 10 or 15 years after this one. So, it is a shame that it's gotten to this point, and I think the replacement structure is very nice. I'm just torn on the demolition.
I think everybody on the board's got that same thought, that they're torn. The problem is that, at least for me, if it was turnkey, if somebody could just walk into that house, get a key, walk in, live there, I think I'd say no to the demolition. But the house is already demolished. It's not even a house anymore. And the problem is, for anybody going in there, is I don't think anybody would be crazy enough, except maybe a Mies van der Rohe society, to go restore this piece of property. And that's what I struggle with. And because this guy, Krasinski, is really an unknown architect trying to design a house in the Miesian influence, to me it's just, okay, he took a shot at it, didn't work, the place is destroyed, so all you're looking at is the bones of a building that may or may not be able to be restored. And what I'm hearing and what I'm reading in these reports is nobody is gonna spend the money to restore this building. So that means it's gonna sit there empty forever. So I'm okay on the demolition, and I'm okay on I think the demolition criteria is met, and I also think that the architectural and design, all the criteria met there as well.
Well, I'll weigh in. I likewise am torn, as several people are. I think that there have been excellent arguments made for what is being proposed. The logic is very strong. Having said that, I don't agree with all of the arguments. I think that the gutting of the interior of the existing structure in some ways has made it more pure. It's what a glass house wants to be. It doesn't want to have walls. It wants to be indoor, outdoor, and have a continuity of space and minimal interruptions of that. So, a bathroom core, a kitchen core, and then open space. Granted, that's not a house for a family of 5. That's a house for perhaps a bachelor who likes a lot of space and likes to see the outdoors from everywhere. We have examples of that. Philip Johnson, his glass house in New Canaan, Connecticut, not as large as this house, but just as much open inside out. A unique kind of an occupant or client. I mean, there are very few Philip Johnsons, and there may be very few Charles Walgreens, for that matter. But it needs, obviously, would need somebody with a lot of money and with a particular taste that appreciates indoor, outdoor design. Before I leave the Philip Johnson, there was a story which allegedly is true that Frank Lloyd Wright once went to visit Philip Johnson at his glass house in New Canaan, and rang the doorbell. There was a bell. Philip Johnson came to answer the door, and Frank Lloyd Wright said, "Tell me, Philip, am I inside or am I out?" Clearly, the house that's being proposed, there's a clear distinction. There is the reuse of so much of the house that I'm not sure I see it as a demolition. I see it as a very extensive remodeling. Yes, there's a removal of the existing garage, and that is demolition. It's a demolition of a portion of the house. But I'm not speaking to the criteria specifically, but just to say I see what's being undertaken is removal of the exterior windows, a lot of cleanup, reuse of structure, and adding to it, which I would consider remodeling, and of course, completely changing the character, but can be a part of remodeling. So I'm comfortable on that side. I don't see a problem with demolition. But one other aspect in terms of being a more suitable character in terms of the proposed house than is this house. I think this house is separated enough from any near neighbors in terms of character style that it has never been a problem. It has never looked like it doesn't belong there. In fact, I live very close to it, and I've never seen it. When I went to look up each of the properties that are on the agenda, that's when I first saw this house, in the driveway and so on, and I'm not that far from it. So I don't think it's an eyesore. I don't think it's something that needs to go because it's not in character with Lake Forest. I think it has plenty of woods and wooded property around it that it's insulated and it does very well on its property. But I do agree with the logic, or let's say the practicality of waiting for someone who is a unique owner that would fit this house, and waiting for that. You do have a depreciating property in terms of safety and security and even its aesthetic value over time. In that it probably is something that where improvement is needed of one kind or another. Viable owner, viable use of the property, I would encourage. So I'm in support of it, of the proposal.
Okay, thanks. I don't have as much problem on the demolition of this one as some of my colleagues, from the standpoint that I think the character of this house has been changed. I think we've got the report from Ms. Benjamin here and her thoughts here that just say that, if you could really restore this is one thing, but it has changed so much that it really, to say that you're going to do it back to historical standards seems impossible at this point. And I do think from a practical standpoint, that could be decades away from happening to this property. So I'm supportive of the new structure. I think the new structure is in fitting the neighborhood. Great materials, appreciate the use of the stone, and the slate roof is really going to be quite nice. I was concerned about the garage initially, but I think that landscape plan and the fact that it's not actually completely visible to Wesley, it's kind of offset a little bit on an angle. I think that helps, and much of the traffic there, as you know, it's a dead end, and will be if they're going through, they have to go to the north along the street there. So I'm in support of this petition. But I do understand some of my colleagues' concerns, but I don't think it's completely warranted in this case, and I can support it. Any other comments? Okay. I think we have a quorum, but I'm not sure. Maybe we could have a motion and vote on it?
I move to approve the petition as submitted, based on the findings in the staff report and our discussions here today. Incorporating the staff report into the motion.
Okay.
Second.
I will second that, too.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-2 for the records.
And
Thank you
that was
very
a
much for your
motion
time.
on the demolition.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can we move on the demolition first? I'm sorry.
I move to approve the demolition of the structure at 1313 East Wesley Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Demolition is approved 5-2. Thank you very much for your time. The next item on the agenda is consideration of request for approval of a demolition of the residence at 348 Scott Street and approval of a replacement residence, site and landscaping. Owner representative is Joel Pickus from Highwood Capital LLC. And at this point, does anyone have any conflicts of interest, like to accuse themselves? Okay, great, thanks. Go Go ahead, Mr. Tricus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Today, we brought before you proposed replacement structure for 348 Scott. Currently, the existing home, according to the title report, it was originally built in 1910. There was an addition put in the back of the house at a later date. We don't know when that was put on. It's about 1,300 square feet with a telephone tile foundation. And there's no driveway. I'm sure you noticed that when you were out looking at the property. That's the house imposed in the lower left corner there, the existing. So what we're proposing is a new house, very much designed in the style of the existing house, which is the Great Plains farmhouse. It's the characteristics of this type of farmhouse is very simple in design, almost austere, with symmetrical fenestrations and with a covered porch, typically in front, raised off the grade. We typically with this type of house, you would have a shingle roof, just a 3-tab shingle roof. We thought that we could give it a little more street appeal by putting a standing seam roof on the lower first floor elements, being the bays and the covered porch. And this is a typical material also used in farmhouse architecture. We've tried to keep many design elements of the farmhouse, open eave designs. We're proposing simulated divided light windows, which would be aluminum clad wood interior. And in this house, it's about 2,700 square feet. It fits within the bulk requirements. And in addition, we aren't asking for any variances. We've cited it so that we have minimal conflict with existing trees. And we've got a detached garage, very much in keeping with the neighborhood. Let me move forward on this. It's kind of hard to see on there, but the house, it's larger than the existing house, but sited so that it's about the same setback from the road as the existing house. A little easier to see on that drawing there, the site overlay that we're basically where the existing house is, and our setbacks on our building are keeping within all the required setbacks. There's not a lot of large, real nice trees on the property, but what oaks are there we're maintaining. There's a bur oak or buckthorn rather, that we want to take out and back. And there's a small 6-inch bur oak back by the garage, the existing garage, that we're going to try and maintain when we remove the existing garage. Do the best we can with that. We'll work with the city arborist on that. One feature that we work with staff on is in the siting of the garage was to try and incorporate a backyard area with the driveway areas. So what we kind of ended up with is there's a fireplace at the end of the house in the family room. So we made it a double-sided fireplace. So we have an outdoor fireplace basically. So you sort of have a sitting area out and back. With the pavers and this is all occurring at the same level as the driveway, and some seating and low planting, so that we can sort of, instead of creating an asphalt wall to wall into the building, we can kind of soften it up and bring some activity to the back of the house, since the garage is sort of cutting you off from the rest of the backyard. There's elevation that let me go into the exterior materials. We're proposing using a hardy plank siding, a light gray, with hardy trim, just a white in color, so we have a very simple palette. And a standing seam metal roof, that would be a galvanized color. It won't actually be real galvanized. I don't think that'd be kind of tough to get these days, but it'd be like kind of a silver galvanized color standing seam metal roof. And the chimney in back is going to be, it'll be painted brick, you know, like a common brick painted. We've really tried to maintain, you know, the same window sizes throughout and around the house, and creating hierarchy of larger windows on the first floor and smaller windows on the second floor, which is typical of this design. And there's the back of the house, the north elevation. You can see the exterior fireplace, which backs up to the interior fireplace. East. Floor plans. It's a 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath house. There's the second floor. We're going to put in a full basement. The problem with the existing house and why we really couldn't use it and are requesting demolition is the foundation being made out of telephone tile. It's caving in, and that's a typical problem with telephone tile because there's no structural lateral stability in a telephone tile. So the walls have bowed in, and there's really no way to fix that without ripping it out. And the water that's leaked in over the years has caused significant damage to the wood structural, columns and supports down in the basement. And our structural engineer really didn't give us any viable ways to be able to save the structure as it is. Here's just a little streetscape showing the relationship between the proposed house and the house to the east and the west. And we're keeping it very much in keeping with the scale and size of our neighbors. And that's the elevation overlay. You can see the existing house in the dark line outlined in front of the new house. There's a bird's eye. You can sort of see how it's sited with the existing houses. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you. Megan, staff report, please.
Thank you, Chairman King. I will keep my comments brief on this one. The request before the board is both for the demolition of the existing house as well as the design of the replacement structure. There is a review of the demolition criteria in the staff report. I think when you first approach the house and you walk around from the outside, it appears to be in pretty good condition, but I think the materials that have been submitted by the petitioner describing the condition of the foundation and the water damage that has occurred over time do support the demolition and really make a remodeling that doesn't ultimately end in a demolition challenging for this structure. With respect to the replacement structure, it is very similar in size. It's certainly a little bit larger than the existing home, a little wider, a little longer, but generally consistent with other homes from a massing standpoint. There are several significant trees on the property, mainly in the rear yard, and the significant trees are proposed to be preserved during construction. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, but we are recommending approval of the project as submitted. I welcome your comments and questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board to the petitioner or staff?
I don't know if I have a question or just for my own curiosity. Whoever invented that telephone tile? Because there's so many houses that are falling down because of it.
Yeah, did a little research on the internet, and it's predominantly you find it northern Chicago area. They made bricks here, you know, in Goose Island. And so this was a material that they had, and, you know, it's like people who build a foundation with concrete block these days. It was probably inexpensive and cheaper than stone or what else, and it's problematic because, you know, the hydrostatic pressure over time just caves it in. Especially when you have clay soils, as we do, expansive clay soils, which, you know, that's the worst thing you can have against it.
They're actually hollow inside, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it was conduit. This is really old conduit. When they ran a line underground or something, and they ran telephone lines in it, so it's got like a series of 6 chambers through it, 6 or 8, depending on how large it is, and they ran wire through this, you know, before there was conduit.
Wow. And you guys are planning on saving those 2 trees, the number 3 and 4 trees?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Could you please elaborate on the reasoning why you're changing the garage location from the existing and why you have so much paving then between, you know, the proposed garage and the back of the proposed residence?
Sure. Go to site plan. Well, we did originally consider keeping the existing garage. It has some great advantages in that it allowed, it's built currently where you can't build it. It's in the setbacks. And it's far enough back that you could get a kind of a decent yard between the house and the garage. And the drawback being that it's far away from the house then also, which isn't desirable, obviously, to somebody who has to park there. But the bigger problem is because it's built, it's non-conforming now. So if we were to change it in any way besides putting a coat of paint on it and some new asphalt shingles or whatever, we would have to get a variance. Or you know, you can't add on to it. It's kind of small. It's not kind of small. It's real small in size. You can see the size of the new one. It's wider for, you know, I don't know what cars they parked in this old garage, but we sized it accordingly for cars today. But a bigger problem is it doesn't have trusses in it. It's got down the middle of the garage, there's a bearing wall, so it's got rafters that go, this wall goes all the way up to the peak, and there's rafters that sit on it. So you can't really take that wall, it's narrow to begin with, and you have a wall down the middle that you couldn't take out. So we kind of went over all these issues with Megan, and we came back to saying, you know what, it's not worth trying to save it because of the advantages of where it's located. We'd probably be better off with a new garage. And if, you know, it's not tremendously a lot more landscaping when you consider we shortened the driveway up by pulling the garage forward. And, you know, we're trying to create an area where people can park additional cars, guests come over, and stay out of the driveway area, and create an area in the, you know, sort of a motor court, if you will, in back. But that, you know, would, quite frankly, we think should be all impervious paving anyway.
Yeah,
So-
I guess so that kind of leads to my question. The whole, you know, your middle backyard is basically all hardscape.
Mhm.
You really have no greenery there, so I imagine that'll go through engineering then and for the drainage and the impervious and such, but that is something you intentionally wanted, was to have a backyard of pavers?
Right, because we were discouraged to have an attached garage. Of course, that was our first
Right.
choice, and that would have opened everything up and back. And you know, we want to have some living area out and back. You know, some deck area and gathering area where you could have an outdoor eating or party or whatever you're going to do in your backyard. But still, the cars have to be able to pull in the garage and back out and then go back out the driveway. I don't think it would be reasonable to have to back all the way down the driveway. So we had to create some sort of turnaround area so that it was functional. And it's the house right next door has sort of got the same kind of thing, and the house they restored directly to the east. So we kind of went through that house and looked at it, and it didn't seem like a great idea at the beginning, but then when you go back next door and look at what they got, it worked. It wasn't all that bad. So we kind of embraced it.
Okay. Then I have some questions regarding your elevations. On the south elevation, which is the front side, can you tell me what the diameter of those columns are?
Well, those would be 4x4s with cladding around them, so they'd probably at the end of the day be 6x6 roughly.
Okay. Are all the roof pitches and the main body of the house, are they all 9 and 12?
Everything's 9/12, yes.
It's not, I mean, not counting the front porch or anything like that.
I think that's 9/12 also.
Okay, 5/12. What is that, what's the purpose of the wood trim band beneath the first floor windows? And is that a change in siding beneath it?
You mean right behind the railings?
Like if you look at the west elevation, there's a wood trim band on the first floor window sill line.
It was sort of a nod towards a typical, Great Plains farmhouse style. Sometimes you would have a masonry base. So it was a little nod to having kind of a base to the house with just a trim board, so that it just kind of, and it ties in our bottom windows. So we don't just have an expanse of siding going right down to the foundation.
So is the siding a different exposure underneath that?
We hadn't planned on that.
Just graphically, it looks like you have like 4-inch.
It does look like that. We were contemplating using the same siding below also.
Okay. Great Plains farmhouse, I've never heard of that. Is that just,
It's,
just like farmhouse in general?
yeah, I mean,
Oh,
but,
okay.
it's really kind of what you've found across the plains, Kansas, South Dakota, those kind of, and that's the style of this house. That's, I'm sure there's 2 other definitions for this style. That's the one I decided to use tonight.
Okay. The rear elevation, the north elevation, there are no windows on the back?
Well, it doesn't look good in elevation, I'll grant you that. What you have is, when you have the house stacking back, there's really no room on the 2 larger expanses. The next to, because there's bedrooms up there, and they have windows east and west, and we would be shoehorning a window in those areas, and that we didn't think that would work very good. The lower on the lower massing, which is where that's a family room extending out to the north end of the house where the fireplace is. We have so many windows on the east and west, we just felt we need to have some wall. That it would be nice to have some wall on somewhere in there. We did have windows in there at one time in an iteration, and we took them out and just so we had some wall. To be honest with you.
And I noticed the doors don't have any light divisions on them. Like the rear door,
Right,
the other doors on the family room to the side.
right, and
And
you know what?
to be
that's-
consistent with the style of the house, it looks like there
We
should be
could,
some.
and that probably hasn't been thought through, and you're probably correct on that. That would probably be something we should probably do on there.
And that's a masonry chimney in the back, you probably need 2 flues, it's a masonry chimney, right?
Yeah, I mean, real masonry chimney.
Okay, so
yeah.
they're, like
We'll
your
have
chimney
two-
cap
Two, caps coming out. No
would
iron.
look
We would do that.
a little better than what you have drawn.
Yeah, you're right. The outdoor fireplace was kind of a late addition.
Okay, and then the east elevation, so the pitch of the small roof over the bay is also an 8 and 12, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and then the transom windows, the side of the wall looks like it's like just ending right over that
Right.
back side one, so that's kind of an awkward
And
condition.
It does, I agree. Those are over kitchen cabinets. So we wanted to get, we thought it'd be nice to have some windows on that wall, even though it's kind of open to the rest of the room, but there was, you know, the kitchen's planned to have the sink in the island, so we have a stove and a hood on that exterior wall, so we thought it'd be nice to have some windows up above. Maybe we can rethink that a little bit, shorten it up a little bit.
Okay. And your eaves, I think you mentioned they were, are they open?
Open eaves.
Open eaves, okay.
Yes.
And then we were just given the drawings for the garage.
Yes, I apologize. That was, we had to kind of cobble that together late this afternoon because it wasn't included.
So I just wanted to clarify then, on the garage elevations, you're showing a closed eave, like a pork chop eave?
Yeah,
And they
and-
should really be an open eave to
Yes.
match the main body of the house?
Yeah.
That's all for me right now.
Could we look at that east elevation again? The house now, as contemplated, the footprint actually expands towards the east, I believe. I don't know how many feet it comes towards the neighbor to your east there.
About a little less than 5 feet.
5 feet, and also is extended how far compared to the existing
How
footprint?
far back?
Yeah.
It's about the entire family room, so a little less than the entire family room, so I'll say about 14 feet.
Okay. And the reason why I bring it up, to the west, you've got the used plans, you got the driveway, et cetera, so you're not gonna have as big an impact, I think, to the west as you are to your eastern neighbor. And when I look at this facade, well, we've already pointed out the transom. Towards the north, you've got these big double patio doors here with transom above them. And that comes out to a deck that, I don't know, is like 6 feet wide, 8 feet wide?
It's about 6 feet wide,
So
yes.
really, there's no real utility in that deck, or not much. I think the focal point of your outdoor space is actually gonna be that north with your outdoor fireplace.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, you know, a lot of light coming out of these windows, extending, you know, to the north of your neighbor, to the east, et cetera. I'm not sure if there's some revisions that couldn't be made to that back there to make it a little softer.
Well, yeah, and that's something certainly to consider. If you look, if I pull up the site plan, though, you'll see that it's considerably back from the neighbor's house. Wrong way. If you can see, well, this is probably not the best plan. That addition, that area back there is, their house is much further forward, so that's their driveway back there. That, you know, that's their turnaround, their motor court in the back. That's about where we line up with back there.
And is that, they have a little deck, outdoor area there to the north, I imagine, off their rear property?
No, there's nothing in there, that's just a porch. They walk out the back door, there's some steps down. But, it was on the side of their house? They had a little bricked-in area on their west side, so it would be basically adjacent to where our dining area is, our little bump out. It was, there's a fence there, but, and a lot of landscape, a lot of existing vegetation, but it was just the house is for sale, nobody lives there, so it's hard to say what's going on there. But there's the air conditioners are back there, and there's some brick paving on the west side of their house back there.
And could you pull up your landscape plan, please? It looks like, do you have foundation planting going along the west side, but not the east side, or?
Yeah, I mean, you know, because we're gonna, with the driveway, we wanted to put obviously a buffer between the driveway and the house. Everything on the west side is pretty much, you know, there, along the property line, there's existing hedges that are on, you know, kind of straddling the property lines. And it's really not gonna get a lot of light back there, so I don't know, you know, I think we were
Along
thinking
the
just
east side,
along the
you're
east
saying,
side of our
along the
house,
east side,
right?
there's
We were
no,
thinking-
there's existing hedges, and I can't recall from my visit.
Yeah, that, and so we were thinking we're just gonna maintain and, you know, seed it all back in.
The, finally, back to the east elevation, if you don't mind, Mr. Pickus. What is this circle underneath that transom there in the plans?
That's his hood. That's where the hood would, no, that can't be the hood. That's the wrong side. That doesn't belong there. That's what that is.
I'm sorry?
That doesn't belong there.
Okay.
That's,
Yeah, it didn't, I don't know what it is, so,
yeah,
okay.
that circle is a mistake.
Okay. And then, final question on the front facade, the door, the entry door on the front facade. I think I've seen it two different ways. Are you gonna have lights there? That one has the lights above the door as well. So are you, all three sides, you're gonna have these lights, and
Well-
is that in keeping with a farmhouse?
Yeah, well.
Plains farmhouse
it was-
site?
We were thinking of having some seated glass around the perimeter, just to give it a little more, again, appeal, instead of just having a solid door. It's a design element that's.
I think it's a rather simple design, you know, very clean, and then you get to that front door. I mean, is that over embellishing that area, do you think, or?
Well, I think it looks, because it looks like there's a lot of lines on there, that maybe if we were able to go with a few larger panes, that perhaps it'd simplify it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had just one large rectangle of glass, I think it would not look right. You need, I think you know, kind of a period glass would look nice there, but it's probably needs to be a little less busy, yes.
Okay, all right. That's all I have. Questions down here?
Yeah, I have kind of a thought more than anything else. Going back to that east elevation, you have those sliding glass doors. But if you look at the footprint with the neighbor, what it seems to me when that guy turns his car around, those headlights are going right through that glass.
Or his taillights.
Right. But do those two sliding glass doors exit like onto the back of the property?
No, that goes to the side deck. It's really, we just wanted to be able to open it up, so if you were having a party or something, you could kind of go out, and flow to the kind of the larger area where there's room to actually sit and congregate and sit in front of the fireplace.
That small, so
No.
you can't exit to get
Yeah,
to the
you go
back.
on the deck, you go down steps, so you're into the, kind of the paved area and back.
And you would put some kind of a divided light in those doors to make it consistent?
Yeah, I think that's probably in keeping here, yeah. And we looked at French doors, and, you know, they're nice and all, but when they swing in, it makes it really tough with your furniture and everything in the room. We didn't want to have them swing out. So, you know, it was just, this is the modernization of the prairie house, the farmhouse here with a sliding glass door. But we hit it in back.
Yeah, it was, my colleagues were talking about that back wall, that I guess would be the north wall, with no windows in it. It's almost as if you could kind of maybe go to one sliding glass door and put a couple of windows in the back.
It's not out of the question. I mean, we could look at that. We just needed some wall. So I know we were lining things up across the room a little bit. Let me go back to the plan. Bring it back this way. So, yeah, there's an argument. I think that we could probably come back with something a little maybe take it down to one door centered. And I mean, I don't know, if we line up windows around there, we're really gonna have windows all the way around, but it's not the end of the world either.
I'm just thinking that eventually the neighbor might want to put an addition on their house, and then you guys will be staring into each other.
Yeah, well, that's true, you never know.
Thank you.
Mr. Pickus, a couple questions. The patio, it looks like there's a seat wall on the patio. Can you elaborate on if that is in fact a seat wall and what the construction of it will be?
We thought that'd be nice to just put a bench in there, you know, to kind of create the sense of space back there. And we thought that something, a wood slat bench, so the water flowed through it, would probably be nice to do back there. I don't think we want to build a big stone bench there, so we're thinking wood.
My only other question is with regard to the staff comment that a permeable paver be utilized. Is that something you're considering, you would be willing to commit to doing? There's really not much of a driveway. It's hard to tell if any kind of paving in that driveway ever was there and has been overgrown or not. But there's obviously with the amount of, by adding a driveway, if you are in fact adding a driveway there, and the paving that you're adding for the patio, I'd like to understand what you're...
Well, all the water on the site basically runs to the northeast corner. So it's going to your right and down to the bottom. So we didn't really want a lot of water to collect, certainly in the motor court area. So we were thinking from basically the back of the house back to the garage, we could do pervious paving in that area and just an asphalt strip from there back.
And that was a pervious, not impervious.
I'm sorry, pervious, yes, pervious.
Okay. That's right. I
Yeah,
thought I heard
yeah,
you say. I just
yeah,
wanted to make sure.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing more.
Any other questions? Okay. Anyone from the public wish to testify on this petition? Please come on up, ma'am. Thank you for your patience tonight.
My name is Maria Kowal, and I have 3 questions. The survey is 2 inches beyond my fence, in the back only. Front is fine. I have my survey, which I got where I bought the building in '93, and it says it's even. So I was wondering why their survey comes beyond my fence in the back. And then also, but the one tree, which is by the garage now, it's half dead, which has to be removed if that all the branches come into my yard. And if it really falls over, it would hit my garage and my garden house. So that walnut tree has to be removed. So
Ma'am, where are you in relationship? Are you the neighbor to the west?
yes,
What's your address?
340 East Scott Street.
Okay. Thank you. Please keep going. Ahead.
So, and I hope so that my light, my fence, it says the landscape, they'll keep it the way it is. But just so long they leave my light fence. I have a evergreen light fence there, which cuts the view out because of all the windows there will be. On my windows are on my side too. So that is for privacy reasons. My living fence, that it stays the way it is. The whole fence belongs to me, west and north. the builder, which I bought the building from, he made the fence around the place. So that's all I have to ask. But the tiling of the roof, what is that? New material, is that slate, or you said it's,
Asphalt
what
shingles.
is the tiling of the roof? It's, you mentioned something. Is it? You don't remember. What is your roof? You say you're tiling. Pardon? Yeah, metal roof, yes. How long is that guaranteed? Could that be a rusting something or things? No? Okay. Okay, that's all.
That's it? Okay. Thank you very much. Megan, any comment on any part of that? Maybe the survey, I don't know why I'd be off by 2 inches, but.
The survey issue is really a private property matter. I think it's a question for the petitioner. I think the intent is to keep the fence. There's no intent to touch the fence or the yew hedge, because that is on the neighbor's property.
Okay.
So.
And then a tree that was noted, a walnut tree.
I believe that's one of the trees that the city arborist did encourage retaining on the property. So we can certainly work with the petitioner to determine the health of that tree and
Sure.
condition moving
Okay.
forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other petitioner from the public? No?
No.
Any rebuttal from the petitioner? Any last comments at all? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, any,
To remove the walnut.
okay. Any other questions from the board to the staff? Petitioner, okay. Okay, time for discussion amongst the board members. Anybody want to kick it off?
I believe that the existing residence, in its condition with the foundation, appropriate, meets the standards for demolition. The new residence fits the character of the neighborhood. I believe will be an asset to the neighborhood. I'd like to see some more thought given to windows on the north elevation. That's concerning. I like the parking court being pervious pavers and a lifestyle back there that seems to be a nice approach. So I'm in favor all the way around with the caveat that the north elevation has window consideration.
Okay. Ted, any thoughts?
Again, Mr. Friedman has eloquently stated the rationale for supporting the petition. With the condition of the existing structure, it satisfies the requirements that the existing structure be taken down, and the new property is certainly in keeping with the character of the community, of the neighborhood and its neighbors. I don't necessarily have so many issues with the lack of windows on the north elevation. I think there's, in my opinion, enough light on the sides of the house. With regard to comments about whether there's too much window on the east elevation in the back of the house, I think there are ways that can be landscaped around with year-round vegetation that would provide privacy for both the petitioner and the resident to the east of the property. So I don't have any further direction that I'm seeking on that regard. And again, with the commitment of the petitioner to put permeable pavers in the back patio, I don't have any issue with that. I support the petition.
I'm in support of the demolition of the existing home. In regards to the replacement structure, I think the farmhouse style is something appropriate for the neighborhood. I think what is proposed could use a little bit of, some perhaps enhancements from our discussions that we've had here. I believe the front elevation, perhaps the petitioner could look at the column thicknesses. It seems to me that they're slightly thin, and they're not quite holding up the roof so much, so I would encourage them to look at the column diameter. The west elevation, I thought was consistent with the style. I didn't really have any issues with that. The north elevation, I think to be consistent with the style is really to include some windows in that elevation. So I would encourage them to go ahead and look at the windows. And I think, you know, what we've sort of talked about is like those windows on the east elevation from the family room, those large windows, you're exiting your family room into the side yard, which at some point that neighbor could build their home, you know, to the depth of this home, and then, you know, you're exiting into a side yard and not really taking advantage of the view of your rear yard. So perhaps there could be some, you know, re-examination of that family room, the windows in that location. And you know, you're going to all this work of building this motor court and patio area, might as well have some windows that you can get out there and enjoy it. So I'd encourage windows on the back side and the east side. Look at the transom windows over the kitchen hood. I think that is a vent hood that you have coming out that circle, because you have the ranges right there, so you can't bring the hood up over those transom windows. And other than that, I think some rework of those elevational items is something I would like to see.
Right?
I can support the demolition. I think the house is appropriate for the neighborhood and the materials and the architectural style. I agree with the comments about the north elevation, and perhaps that could be thought out a little bit more. And on the front facade with the columns, and on also maybe take another look at the front entry and the glass around the perimeter of that. And I think the pervious of pavement is that's a good idea with the small lots and the drainage in that area. So I can support this.
I agree the demolition criteria is met. I am concerned about the double sliding glass doors, as well as the other comments regarding the columns and having no rear windows. I know that, I think over in time, the homeowner's gonna regret that. So, I'm kinda troubled as approving it and just kinda letting it fly and having staff
Sure.
kinda take care of it.
Sure.
Is there a way to?
Yeah, I think so. Fred, I'd be interested in your take in general, and then maybe we could talk about maybe next steps.
Okay. Well, I'm in support of the petition with the exception of the north elevation. It's been commented quite a few times. I think that the character of the house is terrific for the neighborhood, very fitting in all respects. That is, all elevations except the north. And the unrelieved surfaces that are at both levels, I think is almost a giveaway that this is a new house. If you've wondered about it, you'll know it when you get to the north side. It's definitely a new house, and it does not have any windows, doesn't fit. So in looking at how that might be relieved, I think there are two options. One would be to introduce some very small windows, round, perhaps even just elements that give it, break up the surface. But I think the better option is what Board Member Ruggles is talking about, opening up the north to the patio, which is a controlled environment, not the same as the property to the east, which is an uncontrolled future, and having an indoor-outdoor relationship with the family room to the patio, and make that the way in which that north elevation gets relieved, make it also functional, and I think an improved environment for the residents. The east elevation, I think, should still have windows, but you might want to consider having them higher so that they're letting in light and breaking up the facade, but they're not connecting with the view of the neighbor's backyard.
Also allows from wall space below the windows. If they're higher windows on the east elevation, there's usable wall space below.
Yeah, that will give you wall space below it, yes. Shelving, whatever, so with windows above, perhaps.
Yeah. My thoughts are, I agree with a lot of these input everybody has, especially with that north facade. And the east facade, I think really, the modernization of the farm home, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't think you want modernization with 2 sliding glass doors. That just doesn't, and I don't think that's in keeping with this architectural style. So I would say I would not approve this as is, and I would like to see some changes on those 2 facades and also the front door. So we have a couple options. We certainly I approve of the demolition. We can go to a subcommittee here, or perhaps the if staff want to just work with the petitioner. Megan, any thoughts? Is this something that you guys could hash out yourselves and improve this, or you comfortable with that, or is there
It
enough
sounds to
direction?
me like there's enough items that would be tweaked to, for the board to continue the full matter, to allow the petitioner to make those modifications, and then maybe it's brought back on a consent agenda for final approval.
Okay. I think that might be good. I really do think there's enough changes here that I think the product could really be better with some improvements here. And especially given that east facade is butting up against that neighbor, I really want to be careful with, you know, it's a higher building now, it's closer to the building, it's longer. I think we owe it to the neighbor and the community to make sure we get this right. That's my 2 cents. Given that, would we postpone the demolition as well, subject to the new thing? Okay, Megan. Okay, so that's my 2 thoughts. I don't know if
I agree.
anybody
agree.
agree with that. Okay, so we have a motion to continue this
Make a
petition.
motion to continue this matter so that the petitioner can consider some of the comments that have been brought forward tonight.
Second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now it's a final agenda item, the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Okay. Seeing none, we do have a board workshop, October 16th, that everyone hopefully can make. And with that, anyone move to adjourn?
So moved. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.